On April 12, 2015, Freddie Carlos Gray, Jr., a 25-year-old African-American man, was arrested by the Baltimore Police Department for possessing what the police alleged was an illegal switchblade. While being transported in a police van, Gray fell into a coma and was taken to a trauma center. Gray died on April 19, 2015. His death was ascribed to injuries to his spinal cord. On April 21, 2015, pending an investigation of the incident, 6 Baltimore police officers were suspended with pay. The circumstances of the injuries were initially unclear. Eyewitness accounts suggested that the officers involved used unnecessary force against Gray during the arrest, a claim denied by all officers involved. Commissioner Anthony W. Batts reported that, contrary to department policy, the officers did not secure him inside the van while driving to the police station. This policy had been put into effect 6 days prior to Gray's arrest, following review of other transport-related injuries sustained during police custody in the city and elsewhere in the country during the preceding years. The medical investigation found that Gray had sustained the injuries while in transport. The medical examiner's office concluded that Gray's death could not be ruled an accident, and was instead a homicide, because officers failed to follow safety procedures through acts of omission. On May 1, 2015, the Baltimore City State's Attorney, Marilyn Mosby, announced her office had filed charges against 6 police officers after the medical examiner's report ruled Gray's death a homicide. The prosecutors stated that they had probable cause to file criminal charges against the 6 police officers who were believed to be involved in his death. The officer driving the van was charged with second-degree depraved heart murder for his indifference to the considerable risk that Gray might be killed, and others were charged with crimes ranging from manslaughter to illegal arrest. On May 21, a grand jury indicted the officers on most of the original charges filed by Mosby, with the exception of the charges of illegal imprisonment and false arrest, and added charges of reckless endangerment to all the officers involved. Gray's hospitalization and subsequent death resulted in an ongoing series of protests. On April 25, 2015, a major protest in downtown Baltimore turned violent, resulting in 34 arrests and injuries to 15 police officers. After Gray's funeral on April 27, civil disorder intensified with looting and burning of local businesses and a CVS drugstore, culminating with a state of emergency declaration by Governor Larry Hogan, Maryland National Guard deployment to Baltimore, and the establishment of a curfew. On May 3, the National Guard started withdrawing from Baltimore, and the night curfew on the city was lifted. In September 2015, it was decided that there would be separate trials for the accused. The trial against Officer William Porter ended in mistrial. Officers Nero, Goodson, and Rice were found not guilty at trial. The remaining charges against the officers were dropped on July 27, 2016. Backgrounds. Freddie Carlos Gray, Jr., was the 25-year-old son of Gloria Darden. He had a twin sister, Frederica Gray, as well as another sister, Carolina. At the time of his death, Gray lived in the home owned by his sisters in the Gilmore Homes neighborhood. He stood 5 feet 8 inches and weighed 145 pounds. Gray had a criminal record on drug charges and minor crimes. Gray had been involved in 20 criminal court cases, 5 of which were still active at the time of his death, and was due in court on a possession charge on April 24. In February 2009, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison for 2 counts of drug possession with intent to deliver, and was paroled in 2011. In 2012, he was arrested for violating parole but was not sent back to prison. In 2013, he returned to jail for a month before being released. Police officers: Officer Cesar R. Goodson Jr., aged 45, is a 16-year veteran of the police force. Officer Garrett E. Miller, age 26, joined the Baltimore Police Department in 2012. Officer Edward M. Nero, age 29, joined the Baltimore Police Department in 2012. Officer William G. Porter, age 25, joined the police force in 2012. Lieutenant Brian W. Rice, age 41, is a 17-year veteran of the force. Rice, who was promoted to lieutenant in 2011, is the highest-ranking officer charged in relation to Gray's death. The Guardian reported that, in 2012, Rice had allegedly threatened to kill himself and the husband of his former partner. He had been hospitalized, reportedly, for a mental health evaluation and given an administrative suspension. The consequences of this threat included twice having his guns confiscated, and a restraining order on behalf of the husband of his former partner. According to a police report obtained by The Guardian, Rice had also misused his position to order the arrest of his ex-girlfriend's husband as part of a personal dispute that took place 2 weeks before the incident. Sergeant Alicia D. White, age 30, joined the force in 2010 and was promoted to sergeant 3 months prior to Gray's death. She grew up in Baltimore. Her arrest and death. Police encountered Freddie Gray on the morning of April 12, 2015, in the street near Baltimore's Gilmore Homes housing project, an area known to have high levels of home foreclosures, poverty, drug deals and violent crime, according to the charging documents submitted by the Baltimore Police. At 8:39 a.m. Lieutenant Brian W. Rice, Officer Edward Nero, and Officer Garrett E. Miller were patrolling on bicycles and made eye contact with Gray, who proceeded to flee on foot unprovoked upon noticing police presence. After a brief chase, Gray was apprehended and taken into custody without the use of force or incident, according to Officer Garrett Miller, who wrote he noticed a knife clipped to the inside of his front right pocket. In the formal statement of charges, Officer Miller stated that Gray did unlawfully carry, possess, and sell a knife commonly known as a switchblade knife, with an automatic spring or other device for opening and or closing the blade within the limits of Baltimore City. The knife was recovered by this officer and found to be a spring-assisted one-hand operated knife. Quote, according to the state's attorney for Baltimore City, the spring-assisted knife Gray was carrying was legal under Maryland law, while a police task force said the knife was a violation of the Baltimore Code under which Gray was charged. Video recordings by 2 bystanders capturing Gray's arrest showed Gray, screaming in pain, being dragged to a police van by officers, and then stepping up into the van. A bystander with connections to Gray stated that the officers were previously folding Gray. One officer bent Gray's legs backwards, and another held Gray down by pressing a knee into his neck. Witnesses commented Gray couldn't walk, can't use his legs, and his leg look broken, you all dragging him like that. Baltimore Police Commissioner Anthony W. Batts noted from the video that Gray stood on one leg and climbed into the van on his own. The Baltimore Sun reported that another witness saw Gray being beaten with police batons. According to the police timeline, Gray was placed in a transport van within 11 minutes of his arrest, and within 30 minutes, paramedics were summoned to take Gray to a hospital. The van made 4 confirmed stops while Gray was detained. At 8:46 a.m., Gray was unloaded in order to be placed in leg irons because police said he was acting irate. Gray's shackling was recorded on a cell phone, which exhibited a motionless Gray surrounded by several officers as he was restrained. A later stop, recorded by a private security camera, shows the van stopped at a grocery store. At 8:59 a.m., a second prisoner was placed in the vehicle while officers checked on Gray's condition. At 9:24 a.m., the transport van arrived at its final stop, the West District Police Station. After paramedics treated Gray for 21 minutes, he was taken to the University of Maryland R. Adams Cowley Shock Trauma Center at 9:45 a.m. in a coma. The media has suggested the possibility of a rough ride, an unsanctioned practice where a handcuffed prisoner is placed without a seat belt in an erratically driven vehicle, as a contributing factor in Gray's injury. During Officer Goodson's trial, a prosecution witness testified that he could not say if there had been a rough ride, and the judge ruled that the prosecution had not presented evidence to back that assumption. The department's seatbelt policy had been revised 6 days prior to Gray's arrest, in an attempt to protect detained individuals from serious injuries during transport. The policy was not followed in Gray's case. According to attorney Michael Davey, who represents at least one of the officers under investigation, the new rules were criticized by some. He explained that in certain situations, like when a prisoner is combative, it is not always possible or safe for officers to enter the rear of those transport vans that are very small, and this one was very small. In the following week, according to the Gray family attorney, Gray suffered from total cardiopulmonary arrest at least once but was resuscitated without ever regaining consciousness. He remained in a coma, and underwent extensive surgery in an effort to save his life. According to his family, he lapsed into a coma with 3 fractured vertebrae, injuries to his voice box, and his spine 80% severed at his neck. Police confirmed that the spinal injury led to Gray's death. Gray died on April 19, 2015, a week after his arrest. Approximately 3 weeks prior to the incident, Mosby had requested enhanced drug enforcement efforts at the corner of North and Mount.